the newsagents.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's fantastic to be back here. This place played a pivotal role back in 2014. And it got us, Without Clacton, Brexit would not have happened. So thank you, Clacton.
Nigel Farage thanking Clacton there for helping to deliver the Brexit vote. Clacton voted 70% to leave, but it's one of the most economically deprived areas of the whole of the UK, and many here are now deeply regretting that vote for Brexit. I caught up with Nigel Farage after he'd finished speaking and asked whether he was ready to apologise to the people he now wants to represent. You don't care that Brexit has made Clacton worse off? Is that what you said?
That's fine.
Is there an apology to the people of Clacton?
But like his hero, Donald Trump, Nigel Farage doesn't go in for apologies very much. Although Donald Trump has never used the word cobblers as far as I know. But Nigel Farage has got to win over Clacton. Otherwise, it will be 8 attempts to win a seat and 8 attempts at failing. This time, though, it might be different. Welcome to the newsagents. It's John.
It's Emily.
And we are at the seaside. We are at Clacton-on-Sea for Nigel Farage. For me, kind of a bit of a homecoming. As a kid, my mum used to live just the other side of Colchester, and we used to come to Clacton-on-Sea quite often. And if we were being really posh, we'd go to Frinton-on-Sea, because that was posher.
The conservative bit.
That was the conservative bit.
And does it look the same?
Sort of, yes-ish. Clacton-on-Sea is one of those places that you'd come to. It was very easy to reach from London. You know, we kind of had this little place in Little Tay, near Marks Tay. There you are.
And I want to know if you get sort of hairs on the back of your neck because you're going to see the sea.
I always have that. I love the seaside. I mean, it's fantastic.
We should admit that as well as indulging John's childhood nostalgia, we are going to be following a little bit of the Reform Leaders launch on the pier that kicks off at 12 o'clock. I would say there were a few journalists on the train. I mean, there was a sort of contingent from Liverpool Street, not absolutely packed at all. And I guess we will be talking to a few people in Clacton today about what life is like here. Pre-Farage, what they think that their MP could or should be doing for them. So it's a local look as well as a bigger question about what the man who has failed 7 times to become an MP thinks he can do differently this time round.
But if he does succeed here, then the impact of Nigel Farage is likely to be felt far wider than just Clacton-on-Sea. And that is why the Conservative Party nationally has a little attack of the jitters right now.
What is it about him that you really love?
He's such a good public orator. I mean, you can throw anything at Nigel Farage and he's got a damn good answer for it, in my opinion. And his policies are very, very good. I mean, he's calling this the immigration election. And I follow that, of course, like many, many other people.
Why did you look round like that nervously?
Didn't want to offend anybody.
He is an incredible person and he has such a good personality and we all love him.
You're from Clacton. What does it need?
Nigel Farage.
We need Nigel Farage. We need entertainment. There's nothing to do down here. There's literally nothing to do here.
I'm a local. I voted Brexit, and I just say I love Nigel Farage, and I just think we need something in this country. We've got to do something because we are dying. I'm not racist. I think we should. There's good Muslims, good Jewish people, but we need something. We can't keep saying I'm racist. I'm not racist.
But what are you saying then? Are you saying there are too many foreigners in the country?
I'm talking about the immigrants. Yeah, immigrants, yeah. We need to get rid of them because we're dying, aren't we? We're only a small country. It could cause anarchy, couldn't it? The way it's going. That's all I can say. It's awful. You watch GB News and you think, what the hell is going on? It depresses me.
So I guess one of the questions that you're asking us, or you're thinking out loud, is why are they here? Why are they feeding the beast that, frankly, needs no feeding? And I guess the answer to that is because he already exists. He is a phenomenon, as anyone who was down here could see. And the way we're doing this is hopefully to interrogate just what he's about. Because Farage, lest we forget, has a history of not winning seats, which is perhaps worth taking time to consider. He has stood for the people of Eastleigh and Salisbury and Bexhill and Bromley and Buckingham and South Thanet. I could go on. And it seems that when they get to know him well at a personal level as an MP, they don't decide to elect him. So right now, our job, I guess, is to interrogate what he actually wants to do for this town where residents after residents keep telling us nothing much happens. The shops shut, the workers have gone home, there isn't anything for the young to do. They want things to change. And Farage is the man who said just a couple of months ago he didn't really fancy spending all his Friday nights in Clacton. So that's going well.
And that's a question I put to Nigel Farage, because he'd said that in an interview only in February of this year to the Times newspaper, that why would I want to spend my Friday nights in Clacton? How's it going? Are you happy?
Well, we're just about to start.
I thought you didn't want to spend your Friday nights in Clacton.
No, I said I had to make a decision. Was I prepared to make that commitment? Huge commitment. It's a very big commitment.
Mr. Farage, did you actually know anything about Clacton?
I've been here many, many, many times.
The interesting thing is the people. As we were walking down here, we kind of came in at the railway station, then we walked down to the front, and you do walk through a shopping centre which is largely boarded up, or there are vape shops, or there are barbers, and it just feels slightly run down English seaside whose best days are behind it. And that is why Nigel Farage is here, frankly. This is a deprived English constituency, largely white, where the fear of immigration is higher. And you could hear it, you know, when people start to say to you, I'm not a racist, ... And this is fertile territory for him, who wants to make this election entirely about immigration and how you are going to keep foreigners out.
Yeah, but the stat that you really need to understand about Clacton is that 47% of the adult population is inactive, economically not working. That is double the average of England, and it makes it, I think, the highest economically inactive constituency in England and Wales. People here do not have jobs, or they cannot work, which means, of course, all the myriad problems that come with that: poverty, drug abuse, homelessness, and there is crime.
And that is the central paradox of the Farage message, isn't it? Because the health service here, the local hospital, we were told, would kind of almost collapse were it not for the foreign workers. The care sector, dependent on overseas aid.
The hospitality, the pier, literally behind us,
exactly,
has been kept running by people who work here, worked here, and have now gone home.
East Anglia, big farming area. The crops do not come out of the ground without the assistance of foreign workers. This is ripe territory for Nigel Farage to be saying, we've got too many foreigners, we need to do something about it. And yet you feel this area would probably fall to pieces were they to go.
And let's also remember that Nigel Farage might try and seem like a brand new phenomena to Clacton, but UKIP, which is Reform's previous incarnation, is not. It was only here in Clacton that UKIP managed to earn a seat in the general election almost a decade ago. They know what UKIP's done for this constituency. They know what Brexit has done for this constituency. I guess the bigger question is, why do they want to trust Nigel Farage with their vote again, when clearly nothing has got better?
Well, the local MP until the election was called is Giles Whatling, former actor. He is running again, and probably on Monday morning was thinking, life is good, I am going to be back at Westminster on July the 5th. And then he heard the Nigel Farage announcement and thought, holy shit, it's all gone to pieces, Farage is running here. We caught up with him as he was a spectator to the circus.
It's a bit funny, Giles, isn't it, that you've got to come to the place that Nigel Farage is launching his campaign to find the people of Clacton out in their crowds.
Well, no, I wanted to come and have a look. And one good thing that's come out of this, as far as I'm concerned, is it's putting Clacton on the map, which is something I said I'd do when I first got elected. And I love it. It's a sort of a circus atmosphere. And, bring the fight on. It's really interesting.
Come on, Giles, you must have thought, oh my God, he's bloody well running in Clacton.
No.
Really? Come on.
Well, we'd been thinking about it for some time, John, and it was always a possibility. If he does, if he doesn't. And a few weeks ago, he said, "No, I wouldn't. Do I want to spend my Fridays in Clacton?" He said that. And of course, Nigel can change his mind; it's allowed. And when he announced yesterday at 4, I think my team and all the people I know went, "Oh dear, really? He's going to stand against you? It's going to be tough." Well, yeah, it's going to be tough. But from my point of view, like Nigel likes theatre. I love theatre. It's my background. And I thought,
do you stand a chance?
But this is great fun. Of course I stand a chance. I stand on my record here.
The whole circus is behind Nigel Farage now.
Yes, the whole reform circus is behind Nigel Farage now. And talking to people around here, I've had people shake my hands and backing me. They've come just to see what's going on. It's a big political event in British history. That's why you guys...
You're sounding very gracious about it, Giles, but I wonder if inside a little bit of you has died overnight, that you think, that's it, I'm going to do something else for the next 4 or 5 years.
Go off and sell my boat or something. I mean, really, I'm 71 years old. When I first got elected, I was thinking of retiring from the theatrical profession. So I was going to stand down anyway. But then suddenly I had this amazing opportunity to represent my people in my patch. And yes, of course I do that. And I want to do one more term. And that's why I'm standing, because I feel it's business not quite finished.
It isn't finished because it's the most economically inactive part of the whole country.
I know, but I've been working on that. That's why I've brought over 100 million into the area in the last few years, and there's more to do.
Will we see you in Westminster first week in July? Second week in July?
I think so. I think so. I'm not running a circus like my opposition here, but I think I can do it just by doing what I'm doing right now, quietly wandering around talking to people on the streets.
Giles Whatling, thank you very much. Thank you.
So if you like, we've just had the sound and fury of Clacton this morning, and that was Giles Watling, the man who is the Conservative candidate and probably thinking it's a bit of an uphill task now. When we come back, we'll be talking about the wider strategic kind of objectives of reform and the problems that lie ahead.
So let us just paint you a picture of what happened at Clacton Pier this afternoon, bang on midday. There was I'm going to call it a scrum. I mean, it was a big, very happy, very good-natured crowd of people, many of whom had travelled miles. So they weren't necessarily from Clacton. They had come from different parts of Essex. One person said he'd come from Yorkshire. There were other people along the coast. One guy said he'd packed in his job yesterday and he'd driven down from Norfolk because he sort of quite fancied seeing Nigel Farage. So I think you shouldn't underestimate the sense of spectacle that has been created today. And they are people who just, I guess, want to be part of something in that same Trumpy way that feels a bit fun. Something's going on. Even the school kids on their bikes were down here ready to look because they told us nothing much goes on here. So anything, any visiting celebrity is a bit of a moment. And they were definitely down here to kind of pay their respects or cheer him on. And Farage stood on, well, a beer table. I mean, a pub. Obviously clambers on to a sort of a pub beer table and starts his speech there.
Sorry, can I give my favourite bit of listening to him give the speech? Because there were shouts from the crowd of, louder, louder! At which point, his press officer picks up this big loudspeaker and puts it on his head. And for the whole speech, he has got a loudspeaker on his head standing next to Nigel Farage. And you think, well, that's very normal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway.
And also what's normal is when you're sort of saying to the press people, oh, can we get a sit down? Can we get 5 minutes? Can we get a little chat? They gave us this vague line, which was, well, we're going to kick off at 12 and then it's going to be sort of freewheeling. Now, freewheeling could mean anything. Who knows? It means we don't really know. We've got one plan, but anything could happen.
Let's listen to a little bit more of what Nigel Farage had to say.
As for Labour, well, I've got no confidence that they'll reduce the numbers coming in either. And you know the problem? These people, unlike you in Clacton, they're not genuinely patriotic people. They don't believe in Britain and the British people the way you do. But am I right in thinking Yes! Is this not the most patriotic town in the whole of our country? Yes! And we gathered here as one Clacton resident. He's on his way across the English Channel. He's 98, and he's joining 25 other British veterans, 80 years to the day, that we put together with the Americans and indeed with the Canadians, that incredible operation that liberated Europe. Is that something that we're all proud of? Yay! So how is it that over 50% of 18 to 34-year-olds have never even heard of D-Day? It is a complete failure of the education system. It is as if we're telling our youngsters to be ashamed of our past and not proud of our past. And this has happened under Labour and Conservative governments. And what we want to do, we want to put voices in Westminster that truly believe in Britain, do not want the minds of our kids being poisoned, and to tell them that actually they should be proud of this country, proud to be British, and optimistic about the future. Now what do I have to offer you? Well, I can promise you that I do know one thing, that a woman can't have a penis. Okay?
Really? How dare you! Are you sure?
You won't get any woke PC nonsense from me, because I've always told it as it is, stood up for what I believed in, and in over 20 years in the European Parliament, getting up, giving those speeches, being involved in those fights, I can tell you after 20 years there, I enjoyed it much more than they did.
So the observation I would make about that speech was, there were a bit of the greatest hits of Nigel Farage about immigration and about the problems in the country, and not enough young people know about D-Day and what a crying shame it is and all of that. But it felt like it was an endless kind of reaching a climax but never quite getting there speech, where you thought it's going to end any second now. This is the moment, this is the bit where he says goodbye. And he just carries on for another 4 or 5 minutes because he's quite enjoying having the crowd kind of cheering him on.
I think Nigel Farage is in his element, standing on a pub picnic table speaking to a crowd. The moment you actually drill down and ask him anything about policy, he falls apart. We were talking about Kemi Badenoch on the podcast yesterday, and actually it's pretty much the same thing. If you ask him to explain his plans for immigration or for reform or for what constitutes an expert in terms of who's allowed in, if you ask him to tell you what's going to happen to all the migrants that are currently here awaiting the processing of their papers, where are they going to go, how are they going to be housed, how much you want to actually spend on it, he falls apart. There are absolutely no answers as soon as there's scrutiny put upon him. And if we think, as many people do now, that he is going to be one of the most influential politicians in the country, then that scrutiny is absolutely fundamental, and that is our job, to just elicit answers from a man who's pretending that all the other politicians are all the same and they haven't got any answers to any of the problems.
Look, that is the luxury you have as a politician standing for election, knowing you are not going to be in government and ever going to be judged against delivery. He is never going to be judged against delivery about saying we have to get to net zero migration and I don't care what happens in the process. It's power without responsibility.
I mean, the only thing that he has actually delivered is a hugely influential Brexit vote. And I do think he was hugely influential in that Brexit vote and responsible for it. And all you have to do is say to people here and elsewhere, how's that turning out for you? The people of Clacton now will not tell you of a person that Brexit has helped them economically, socially. It has not helped get this town moving. And but he doesn't really care what they think.
It goes to power without responsibility, because he doesn't need to be accountable in that. So he says, well, we voted for Brexit. It's the government that screwed it up. The government have completely kind of let people down with the Brexit that they have implemented. And if I'd been in charge, it would have been totally different. The counterfactual that you can never prove. And so that is Nigel Farage's MO. I struggle to see him as a backbench MP standing up at PMQs asking about the health centre in Clacton.
The thing you learn very quickly about Nigel Farage is he is a crowd pleaser. He's brilliant on a table talking to the masses. But as soon as you actually ask him direct questions, scrutiny about policy, about what he would change, about what's gone wrong, about whether indeed he should apologise for the things for which he's responsible, it's very hard to get answers. This was me with him in the thick of it. So this is the most
Clacton,
economically deprived area in England.
I know. Thank
Would you
mate.
apologise for what Brexit's done to Clacton?
No, thank you.
Well done, Emily.
Thank you.
What are your priorities for this
Emily,
constituency?
Nigel's
Could you give us a sense
Money.
about that?
Well, standing up for people is very important, and particularly for small businesses who, sadly, all right, thank you very much.
Just to go back, so
This has got the most inactive. This has got
All right.
What are you going to do to help those who aren't in work in this country?
Brexit has cost every household £2,000.
I'm all right.
What's your answer to that?
Hello. All right.
Can you answer that, Mr. Farage?
I didn't hear the question.
Brexit has cost every household £2,000.
Oh, put a
minimum.
note on. Put a note on.
Okay, so you don't care.
Right, you're right.
You don't care. You don't care that Brexit has made Clacton worse off. Is that what you said?
That's fine.
Is there an apology to the people of Clacton?
Properly, hold on, everybody.
Well, one person who was more happy to make themselves available to some of our questions and our scrutiny, I mean, by that, he stood still whilst we talked to him with a microphone.
We weren't getting crushed by security guards
We
around.
weren't at that moment, was Richard Tice, who we now have to call the former leader of Reform. And we started by asking him when he found out that he'd just become an ex-leader.
Well, I've been talking about this with Nigel for a long time, months and months. I've been saying, how much can you give? And we knew that a winning formula was what happened in 2019 when I was chairman, Nigel was leader. So we knew how the formula works. And actually, for us, it's not about the titles, it's about the action.
When did you first know, though?
Oh, I've been saying to him, get stuck in for months. I wanted him to be able to look. As Nigel agreed and said, the Sunak calling the election early that no one expected, least of all you, although I thought it might happen, I've won 2 pints of Guinness on it, I said, you've got to go for it. He thought about it, and then ultimately, we knew the formula, but ultimately he had to make the decision.
He said it was fishing and the pub on
Yeah,
Sunday.
very important.
Did you get the phone call after that?
Well, obviously, I've been in touch all the time. We speak daily, all the time. Ultimately, he had to make the decision. And
Because
then
he's the majority shareholder, isn't he? So technically, if he owns more of Reform than anyone else, he can decide if he wants to be the leader.
Irrelevant. It's about what works.
But true.
It's true, but it's a not-for-profit company. But guess what? Actually, we've grown something from zero in 3 years with very limited resources against all the odds because we're fast decision makers, we've got the right policies, common sense, people like it, and that's why all of a sudden we're now in the mid-teens. And look at the polls in a week. I think we're going to be hitting high teens, possibly 20%.
But you were taken by surprise, weren't
Not
you?
at all.
No, you knew yesterday
We've
morning.
been talking about this for months and months and months.
Yeah, I know that. That doesn't preclude the fact that you may have been surprised when Nigel put out his tweet saying
I was with him on
emergency political
Friday. I was
announcement.
with him on Friday and Saturday. We
But he
sensed the change. We sensed the enthusiasm from the young. And I said to him, "Are you sure? Are you really sure?" And I knew that he was thinking very, very seriously about actually sometimes you make a decision. The great thing is in life, and that's what we do in business, if you make a decision, you monitor it, and if it's the wrong decision, you tweak it, you change it, and then you push on.
Because nobody in Reform that we talked to yesterday had a clue.
Yeah, but if you want to keep a secret, don't tell anyone. That's the definition of a secret.
Including you.
No, I knew, because I've been talking about it for months, but I kept a secret. You don't believe me, I promise you. I know what's in here. I knew.
Did you ever consider doing
I'm
a
good
deal?
at keeping a secret.
Did you ever do a deal with? Consider doing a deal with the Conservatives.
No,
There are Conservative MPs who are very like-minded.
John, have you not been listening for the last 2 years when I've been saying we're going to stand 630 seats all over the country and I'm not doing a deal with the Tories? I still wear the scars on the back from 2019, that decision we made, right decision at the time, but tough. So no, we're not going to do a deal with the Tories.
Nigel Farage sounds like he's already got rid of one of your policies, the policy of sending asylum seekers to another country to have their...
You've got a range of...
Is that right? Has that gone now? To have have their papers processed overseas.
A range of ways of dealing with the asylum seeker crisis, which is what it is, and we've got a 6-point plan. That's one of the options.
He just tore your plan up this morning.
Not at all. Absolutely. What he said was the best thing to do is to deport people. And you've got a range of options. Use those options. Absolutely. That's what it is. And in an ideal world,
are you going to use a Rwanda-style deportation scheme then? Is that what Reform's idea is?
We know Rwanda is a farce. It's a complete joke. It's a waste of money and time and effort.
What's yours?
So yours is British overseas territories, isn't it?
No, the idea is process people quickly. Funny enough, like the Labour Party did back in the 2000s, processing people in 2 weeks, and then you got a week to appeal.
But where? Because you were talking about the Falklands or Montserrat.
Back in the early noughties, the Labour Party was deporting about 40,000 people a year back to where they came from. That's the ideal situation. If that's not possible, you've got to look at other options.
So the Labour Party was getting it right then?
Well, that's the irony. Don't be proud about it. Just tell it as it is. They got it right. The Tories have screwed it up. Go back to what works.
And does it work to send people to overseas British territories?
Well, it clearly doesn't work the current situation, which is not to send anybody anywhere.
That's not what I asked. What's Reform's plan? Because Nigel Farage was asked about this and he tore it up like mid-air.
No, he didn't tear it up mid-air. Look, the plan is, there's a variety of things. You want to stop people coming across by picking up and safely taking back, which we're legally entitled to do under international maritime treaties. And by the way, France has a legal obligation to do that, which it's failing to do.
So will Reform work more closely with the French neighbours then? Is that what you want to do? You want to work closely with the French?
You should have a joint processing centre in northern France that makes decisions in 2 weeks and then have an appeal system.
Good diplomacy with the French, presumably. You'd endorse that?
To get good diplomacy, you've actually got to tell it as it is.
With the French?
Use a bit of leverage. Absolutely, with the French.
What is our leverage with the French?
Our leverage with the French is that this will be a good thing for them because it'll stop the magnet pull factor. You know what the Belgians did? They picked up and take back. Guess what? The magnet factor in Belgium has stopped. So there's huge...
They're pretty good friends with the French.
That's good.
Famously.
But your solution of just letting the boats drift across leads to people dying. Our solution is the kind of...
It's not my solution, I'm just asking about Reform. I'm just asking about your plan.
Reform's solution is to pick up and take back. That will stop people dying. It's what should also happen in the Mediterranean. For those who are here, right, you've got to process them quickly and then...
Where?
Process them in the UK and deport them. And then... that's the reality. We've got a range of options and we've got to get on with it.
So you're going to put how much money into the processing then? Because we're already spending, what, 6 million a day?
I think it's actually 8 million.
8 million a day?
There's plenty of cash to go around to process people. What you've got to do, though, is have people who are good at the job, competent. The whole Home Office is not fit for purpose. It's like a knackered old building. Frankly, demolish it, start again, create a whole new Department of Immigration that actually will get the job done.
Richard Tice, thank you very much. Cheers.
So the question we haven't yet answered is, can Farage win here? And my gut feeling is he wouldn't have stood here. He would not have risked another loss. It would have been, as we said, his 8th in a row if he hadn't believed he was going to win. I think if you look at the polls, the Conservatives and Reform are not too far apart, even before his announcement. So the idea that he couldn't push Reform above the Conservatives in this seaside town is frankly just disingenuous. He almost certainly will.
Well, we were looking at the odds, weren't we, earlier?
Well, I was looking at the odds and asking you to explain the odds because I'm not very good at odds.
11-4 on.
You're very nice. Yes. Don't do that. The maths.
So, okay, you put 11 quid down and you get 4 quid back. So you're not making much.
It's likely.
It's very, very likely. If it was 10-1, then you would put 1 quid down and you'd win 10.
Okay, so I would say there is a slight chance that if the Conservative vote held up and the Reform vote brought people out who weren't going to vote before, then you might find the vote was split and Labour came through the middle. What I think will happen is that the Conservative vote will shrink into the Reform vote and more people will come out for Farage than would have come out for the Conservatives, and they will beat Labour here. And I think it will be, I'm going to say it's going to be a slam dunk. Quite frankly, I don't believe that Nigel Farage would have put his ego on the line. I think it's actually too fragile to withstand another loss. So that would be my bet here.
Yeah, I think he's going to win, which means that it's almost like he is going to be the spectre at the feast tonight in the debate that takes place between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer, where you're going to feel his presence. And Rishi Sunak is going to feel that over his shoulder looms Nigel Farage as a new and dangerous threat, even though the Conservatives are already in a parlous position.
Well, feast on this whilst you can, because we have another show coming, this time from Manchester, where the party leaders are going head-to-head in their first televised debate on ITV.
We are now going for fish and chips. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Newsagents. This is a Global Player original podcast.